Right, so if you haven't quite got your head around exactly what Keir Starmer's position is regarding this oil and gas business, you're far from alone, because it's hypocritical, stupid, Tory supporting, for all those who accuse me of wanting to see the Tories win by daring to hold the wannabe next Labour in name-only Prime Minister to account, and just makes the party look like absolute flaming idiots. Labour's position is to not grant any more oil and gas exploration licences should it gain power. However, it won't cancel any of the current licenses or the 100 or so that Sunak is committed to making, those licenses that the Tory government issue now, nor oppose them being made now, all despite saying they do oppose them being made on the basis that the investors have said companies buying the licenses need certainty. We all need a planet to live on, of course, but don't let that stop you from fudging the issue, Keith. It is the most confused, muddied and idiotic position to take going. Starmer is literally fence-sitting on whether the planet burns or not because he's worried about investor money, worried about a Tory investment plan failing, God forbid. And so therefore, as he's done so often in the past, hasn't committed to reversing Tory policy. He could kill these new licenses stone dead and take a stand on the side of the planet and on the side of the renewables plans he says at the moment he's still committed to, watered down even though they are. But that could, of course, change tomorrow with his track record for policy promises. He could literally say right now that Labour would abolish these licenses should it reach power, and nobody would want to buy them now. We know it takes years to find new gas and oil sources. These companies will be fishing around with no guarantee of a bite. With the election due next year, it would have actually been a sign of some semblance of leadership. But Starmer is no leader, can't even see one move ahead on the political chessboard and keeps checkmating himself. It's not like this position is anything new. He actually announced it back in June, but suddenly the media have become aware of it maybe, or fixated on it now, and some poor sods have been deployed to the media rounds now to defend it, and makes it sound like it makes sense when it blatantly doesn't. Annalise Dodds, a woman reminiscent of a frightened hamster, got sent out to Sky, for example, and it was put to her that Energy Minister Grant Shapps, the spiv, called Labour's energy position mad, because we need more oil and gas for energy security. Nonsense when it's a finite resource, of course, so there's no future security there in it. But anyway, Dodds came back with the argument that investing in more oil and gas is mad, because those resources are the reason our energy bills have been kept so high, and Shapps needs to answer why he wants to keep people's bills high, and that investment in renewables and the creation of new jobs that will bring is the way forward and the way of the future, and that business apparently wants to see this green energy sprint they're calling it now, watered down is what I call it, that Labour are apparently still committed to. So perhaps Dodds didn't get the memo that Rachel Reeves had indeed hobbled Labour's green policy with a whacking great hockey stick to the ankles of it with the words fiscal rules burned into the side of it. But okay, so far so sensible in that what she said made sense up until that point. Then Dodds got asked, of course, will Starmer overturn these licences then if Labour comes to power? I mean, you could just see the life drain from her face in the interview, that she must have known the question was coming, because after a big sigh, she answered, so we won't cancel existing oil and gas licences. All the sense she was making straight out of the window. Of course, by the time Labour are able to be elected to reach power, all of these licences now being put up for sale will now be existing licences. And therefore, as much as Starmer can stamp his tiny feet and say, oppose this, and actually he's doing what he always does and supports the government. Fangam Debonair had just as much of a field day with Kirsty Wark on Newsnight over this. And here's where right-wing hack rags and their ilk came out of the woodwork. Because as much as I can point out Starmer's failures as stupid and the need to actually oppose the Tories is crucial, the Tory supporting types will do so as well, but with a view to supporting the Tories in what they are doing. Guido Fawkes are amongst the most gloaty of Tory supporting media. Well, it's a horrible rag, really. I'm bringing it up, I know, but it's giving me indigestion. They crowed with glee over the knots Debonair got herself tied in, which they, as much as it galls me to ever be in agreement with them, rightly identified as ultimately being the same strategy as the government, in that they won't reverse the licences being granted now. Ergo, they'll remain under a future Labour government as much as they would under a Tory one. But of course, with Labour also saying they'd grant no more because it contributes to the climate disaster, Guido can point to the Tories as knowing what they're doing and Labour as being weak and confused. There's no win here for Labour. They've gained no political capital out of this. Perhaps they figure they don't need to. Starmer's poll lead is still absurdly massive, as we all know, as the public turn against the Tories all the more. But it's built entirely on anti-Tory sentiment as it is, because Starmer basically doesn't stand for anything. The lead is built on sand, therefore, and could collapse at any time. It would only require some kind of a scandal, an issue to blow up in Starmer's face to do so. Issues such as Savile being talked about again show the right wing are looking for the anti-Semitism moment that they could attack Starmer over, though this time the establishment machine isn't on their side anything like it was before. So why has Starmer taken what is a senseless position? I think there's three things this could come down to, all assuming he can afford to spend a little political capital to make gains elsewhere. First is that donation that Labour got from Just Stop Oil supporter and Ecotricity boss Dale Vince. Starmer's come under pressure to return the £1.5 million to Vince because of his Just Stop Oil connections. And Starmer's certainly been trying to distance himself from Just Stop Oil. I can't imagine Vince has got much of a return on his investment in Team Keith here, backing oil and gas as he is, but isn't, but actually still is. So by refusing to revoke these licenses if they reach power, if Starmer reached power, that goes some way to killing off his links towards the eco protesters, maybe. And as much as that might upset those supporting Labour with a view to fighting climate change, there can't be many of them, really, surely. Starmer would rather win the support of right-wingers. So do yourselves a favour if Green climate-opposed party is what floats your boat, and vote for the Green Party instead. It's literally what they stand for, you know. I'll come back to them in a minute, actually, incidentally. Secondly, the second thing I think this could all come down to, as always, that seems to be a driver for anything Starmer does, is donors. The Tories, to nobody's surprise at all, might be hiding behind the guise of energy security, but more of it comes down to the fact that according to climate website DeSmog, that's a great name, who have analysed electoral commission records, they've taken some £3.5 million from individuals and corporations linked to the fossil fuel industry, climate change denial, and high pollution industries just over the last year. That's some epic level lobbying going on. And Starmer, we know, really wants them to be his donors and not the Tories' donors. And he wants them to fund him instead. All the breakfast with Rachel Reeves on offer, as I've covered elsewhere on other videos. And the third reason, this might be a bit of a mind wander on my part, but bear with me. But the North Sea oil and gas industry is intrinsic to the Scottish economy. And in keeping with my strong belief that Starmer is to chess and political strategy what I am to full heads of hair, there's a by-election afoot in Scotland, Rutherglen and Hamilton West. Totally the wrong part of Scotland, I appreciate, before Scottish viewers come at me. But this is a two-horse race between Starmer's bunch of red Tories and the SNP. And with the SNP supported with the oil and gas industry, albeit they accept Scotland is also ideally situated for renewables, for Labour to come out completely opposed to these new oil and gas licences might be a little counterproductive going into this by-election. With the wind in their sails, as the polls say, it can be argued, also with the SNP incumbent Margaret Ferrier having been triggered, which has caused this by-election, triggered by a recall petition over her breaking COVID rules by travelling by train after testing positive during the pandemic. This is an SNP marginal. Labour have a great chance of taking it. But to get a big majority, Starmer needs to be making inroads in Scotland at the next general election. So an emphatic and thumping win over the SNP here would be very, very useful to him. Failing to win this seat, failing to win this by-election, would be politically very damaging, I think. So there may be an element of making Scotland-friendly decisions here to win over voters. Try to. And give the impression he's on his way to power because he's taking back Scotland for Labour. Now, I personally would like to think the good people of Scotland can see through all of this, however, and treat Starmer as they do any other Tories, with justified disgust. Anyway, the Green Party has been making some rounds in the media as well. They've actually got some attention. It seems to be one of those rare occasions where they've got somebody's attention. And Deputy Leader Zach Polanski, always a good speaker, told the BBC, we need to be really clear that we're in a climate emergency and we need to reduce inequality in our society. And this isn't just the government, by the way. The Labour Party are not saying that they would revoke these licences. Effectively, that is giving permission, or it is giving an incentive to all these companies to carry on. The Labour Party and Keir Starmer in particular could stop this today by actually saying they would revoke these licences. So it's very clear what the choices are here. We can carry on going down the route that both Labour and the Conservative government are complicit in, which is essentially ignoring the climate emergency and the ecological crisis, or going, why don't we tackle inequality in society? Why don't we have a wealth tax, for instance? Tax the super rich. That's a 1% tax on the richest 1%. Why not have a carbon tax, windfall tax, so we could close the loopholes on gas and oil? Making all these active choices that the Green Party would make in the way of both tackling the climate emergency and tackling the inequality crisis too. I don't know why the government won't step forward and do that. No, I couldn't agree more with everything he said, though, of course, myself being a Green, I am rather biased. But come on, surely what he's just said is common sense. The only thing I'd add to what Polanski said there is that we know why the Tories and Labour won't tax the 1%, and it's because they fund their parties. The Tories always have been, and Starmer desperately wants to be. Neither party is capable of delivering on these, so surely the Greens are the obvious choice to vote for now. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please do like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation for you where, from the Tory perspective, these oil and gas licences may not be all about the Tories appeasing their donors, but Sunak lining his own pockets once again, making policy for his own ends. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.